It's Disruptive FM, live from the 2020 Consumer Electronics Showcase in Las Vegas. Featuring conversations on the most exciting new technology at CES. Sponsored by Microsoft Advertising.
Lucie was the head of JWT's innovation group and is now heading up her own company, Lightyears. Lucie, thanks for joining us here on Disruptive FM.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so consumer behavior, people behavior, what are the things you are seeing and how is that going to allow certain technology to take off this year? What are you seeing out there?
Right, so I have the good fortune to be at CES every year in January. I grace Las Vegas, and but I come at it very much from a consumer perspective, like how people are seeing the world around them, what pain points they're aware of, what their motivations are. And one of the things we've seen really progress and become more and more relevant in the last few years is what I would describe as a climate of anxiety, and consumers really trying to fortify themselves against instability, economic instability, well-being, trying to fortify their bodies, worrying about the environment, worrying about security. And you really see that play out in all the new innovations and devices here, or a substantial number of them. So you see the explosion of home security devices becoming ever more sophisticated, now being able to pick up sound and recognize disruptive potential or unrecognized sounds in your home spaces. Loads of air filters, pollution monitors, stuff like that. Lots of fertility tech, lots of stuff like that. A couple of interesting iterations of that this year. We've seen a sort of emphasis on the food supply chain and resilient tech, and this idea of being able to grow your own produce in environmentally friendly ways at home. So Samsung has an interesting experiment on that front. But also this idea of immersive devices being used for therapies in new ways. Already we've seen virtual reality being used for PTSD and treating the army, but we're seeing that start to leak into the consumer space and be used to treat anxiety and stuff like that. So generally that idea, that sense of sort of trying to protect against what is an increasingly aggressive world is driving consumer trends, I'd say.
Okay, I gotta ask you this question. What trend do you see that's just absolutely off the mark, that everyone says, oh, this is going to be really big, and your personal view, maybe some of your research is saying, I don't know about that. That might not really be where people are right now?
I think there's been a temptation for a lot of brands and a lot of sectors to go after technological transformation. And of course, there's a huge number of benefits from that, but there's a lot of invention of tech for tech's sake. And I'm afraid to say, in the beauty space, I think there's been a lot of innovation in these sort of diagnostic apps that contribute to then like hyper-personalization that I don't know necessarily that any consumer really has the time for. A huge amount of money being invested in that stuff, and like to me a lot of it is a solution for a problem that maybe doesn't exist, or certainly there's a very narrow consumer group which are going to take that up.
All right, question for Christy and Lucie. Advertising, why is it here at CES? That's always a question I have. Why do advertisers come to CES? Is consumer behavior so intertwined with technology?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen this huge renaissance of channel innovation recently, pretty much with the Internet of Things and 5G. Everything, the whole way we interact with the Internet is changing, and everything is becoming an interface for marketing, including sound, including the car, including headphones, and all the intersection and all the convergence of all those mediums. And they're all going to present new opportunities and new challenges to marketers and new ways to sell. So interesting, the more and more emphasis in the recent years on gaming in particular, which is interesting when I particularly have been spending a lot of time looking at teenagers recently who use the gaming space as de facto social media and their place to congregate. So that should really be a focus for a lot of marketers in terms of trying to reach teens. So all this channel change presents a lot of opportunity for marketers.
Kirsty, what's your take?
I love what Lucie said, especially as we think about the intersectionality between data and advertising. Big data, how do we take advantage of the information that is coming in from different devices and new technologies to understand how do we reach our audiences in either existing mediums and formats or new and emerging mediums and formats that right now we're on this precipice of the AI where we have access to so much data, but marketers are trying to figure out how do we actually utilize that to make better experiences.
Right.
And so I think that's where we sort of come together here is you see the technology and you see what's coming, maybe not now, it's like going back to that 8K TV, Right now, there's not enough 4K TV programming, but
Yep.
we know that it's getting there. And so you see what's coming, so you can start to plan and prepare your marketing, prepare your strategies for what will be in the next
Right.
1, 5, and 10 years.
Speaking of 4K, I believe we're actually videoing 4K. Is that correct, gentlemen? Okay,
Nice.
yes, 4K. So
All the
at least we
wrinkles.
are making some headway in
Make it
there. Lucie, voice, got to ask you about this because Christy actually did the 2019 Microsoft Voice report
Right.
for the company, which a lot
was
of
very
people
good.
circulated and a lot of people presented. You've been talking about it a lot, researching it a lot. Where does it go in 2020? Because there's some people who are very bullish on it.
Right.
There's some people who say it's good for transactions. It's not going to really change the world. There's other people who think it's going to change the entire user experience moving forward. What's your take?
I think it's absolutely fascinating and a huge opportunity. For brands, it kind of presents interesting questions like what does your voice, your tone of voice sound like? So sonic branding, but we're seeing lots of different applications of it in terms of sonic experiences. I also just think as we start to interact with the internet more verbally, we're seeing that sort of move into interacting with social media verbally. So what does it look like when you're, I guess, like talking to social media channels? That's going to be an interesting question going forward if we're sort of sharing our posts verbally on Facebook. Already a lot of the social platforms are trying to combine music and sound clips and stuff. So, and of course, again, when you're looking at these really high social media users or media consumers, a lot of them are also consuming huge amounts of time in audio media in the form of podcasts and music. And so to me, that area is only going to grow, especially as we start talking and conversing with more and more devices around us.
Love it. Well, you're joining us a little later this month in Los Angeles for our 2020 Vision Report Roundtable. We're excited to have you.
Looking forward to it.
Lucie Greene, Light Years, thanks for joining us on
Thank you
DFM.
for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.